we did make along the way, but you know, that was just part of the process. Compared to most movies, the initial structure of that sort of simplistic and yet beautiful tale remains the same.
So we had a little fun with you yesterday about there being no visual edits in that scene, and it actually runs much longer than that without a cut happening. Why don't we start off talking a little bit about how the edit actually informed production in this case?
Yeah. So when we started the film, I mean, it was a very unique situation as an editor, because as the co-editor on the movie, Alfonso Cuarón asked me to come in long before they had development money, long before we had a cast, and at a stage where actually nobody really knew how we were going to do this. And certainly that initial process, about 18 months prior to shooting, was all about not only the creative aspects of roughly blocking the film together, but also about giving a blueprint to all of the other departments in order to provide them with the data they needed in order to work out how we were going to do the film. So there was this process going on that, as editors, you know, we don't normally get involved in, and that is, you know, people from pre-production working collaboratively with people from production and post-production, all of us working together in order to kind of come up with the answers. And that process it began with myself and the storyboard artist and the director and the visual effects supervisor sitting around a table and roughly blocking scenes with little astronaut toys and models of the International Space Station, and discussing how the scene might go together. And then gradually I would then get the storyboards, and then we would start assembling those storyboards together in Media Composer. And I recorded George Clooney's dialogue, and my assistant Tanya Goding was Sandra Bullock. And by the way, they weren't attached to the project at the time, you know, so we didn't know who we were going to play the characters. And you know, we went through this process where these sort of animated storyboards, we would flop them around and move them around to give some sort of vague visual idea to the animators over what the shots should actually be. And then the animators would give us some rough stick bend animation to cut back in, and then we'd use Media Composer tools to stretch those out, retime them, flip them, moving around. As Alfonso kept, you know, his creative process is just like constantly going, and so the trick for me was just keeping up with that. And then we give that back to the animators, and there was this cyclical process where gradually, over months and months and months, the visuals became much more clearer. By the time we came to shoot, the animation was actually lit, because that was part of what needed to be answered prior to the shooting. Is you know, at what stages where the actor's face is going to be illuminated and by what. And so by the time we came to shoot, we had a fairly, you know, shot by shot, it was fairly rigidly locked down. And the actors were then shown a cut of the movie in that form as we're in the studio, which I think rarely happens on a, certainly I can't think of another situation where that happens on a live action feature. And then what happened was the moment the actors arrived, the film suddenly had life for the first time, because after this period of, you know, my performance and my assistant's performance and these maquette, you know, dead face characters in the animation, we had an idea that you know, stylistically what the film might be like. But then the moment the actors turned up, suddenly there was this joyous moment where we suddenly realised, wow, this film actually is going to be quite cool, because there was life that was brought into it.
Gravity is one of those movies where the end credits are almost as long as the movie itself. I think you had about 600 people working on the film, and only 3 to 5 of them were actors. How many were in the editorial department?
I think, and they're going to kill me for not knowing exactly, I think there were 7 or 8. There was three assistants. It was Tanya Golding, my assistant, Deb Richardson, Steve Mates, Steve Pack was our visual effects editor, Alistair Grimshaw was the 3D Conform editor, Ruth Antoine was our trainee, and then that was my kind of key team, and then, but also the visual effects guys, French Store, they also had a media composer, because of the pipeline, we were constantly in communication. Any changes that I was making in the edit with Alfonso, at any point during the whole process, immediately, instantly need to be in the hands of the visual effects guys, or during the pre-production process, needed to be with the first AD. The first AD needed a copy of that because any change I made would